This is the Infinity Summit Group. Truth, passion, success.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Infinity Summit Group podcast. Today is July 25th, 2022, and today we got a special guest on today for their one-year checkup again. Checkup, check-in. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm Noah.
Xavier.
I'm Logan.
Jesse.
And we got our special guest on here today.
It's Jacob. What's bussin'?
He's on yet again. No, just kidding. Welcome back.
Was this the third
Thank you.
time?
I don't know. I
think fourth.
I come around like a homeless bum. It's seasonal.
Well, I thought we had him on twice, and then we had him on for a shrooms one specifically, I thought.
Well,
And then
No, that was the red book.
The
Or the
red-
black book, whatever it is.
The red
And
book.
that was when I went into like a 30-minute spiel that everyone's ears bled on. Yeah, it was powerful.
I was there because I read the book.
By the way, you look less homeless now.
Thank you.
Oh,
For
yes.
the viewers that can't see me, I've definitely trimmed up. I look like I probably live in some apartment, but not homeless anymore. Leg up, you know.
Nobody can see you, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I was telling for the viewers what I'm looking like now.
It's
Giving
no
them the
longer
vibe.
cocaine Jesus. He's Adderall Jacob.
Yes.
How,
Little bit
how
more
you
high
been?
class. Amazing. Yeah, actually amazing.
It was good. What's new?
Well, Impact is new.
What the fuck is that?
Well, it's a spiritual,
Oh, yeah,
kind
we
of like
might
a,
talk about
a
it.
spiritual training thing. It's like an experiential training where you go in and you get to kind of clear out a lot of your closets, or at least for me, that's what it was. Clearing out a lot of closets and
Did you walk out of
Take-
any of them?
absolutely I did, yes.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of it for me, the experience was kind of taking an honest look. No, not kind of. Definitely taking an honest look at where I stand and the things that I engage in or engaged in regularly. A lot of sad sappery, you know what I mean? Oh, poor me. Things like that. I got to look at that and be like, I actually can live outside of that. And I got to let go of looking at my relationships in like a problematic scope.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I don't portray life as an issue that needs to be solved, it's no longer an issue that needs to be solved. Surprise.
There
So
you
you
go.
pulled out the pity dick.
Yeah, definitely.
How big was it?
Massive.
All encompassing.
It was truly my life, yeah.
I've never heard of this
Was it-
pity dick.
Oh, have you seen
That's so
Deadpool 2?
funny.
Have you seen Deadpool 2?
I think I've seen even that scene.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
That's the one I was.
Got
That's
it.
what I was on about.
Porn star worthy.
To say the least, yes, it was a very large part of my life. But yeah, so I gotta let go of a lot of stuff, pick up a lot of tools that allow me to just move through things quickly. Any sort of challenge in my life, I move through a lot more quickly, and so it's been an inestimable resource. Inestimable. There's a word there that I'm looking for, and I trust that you'll find it. But
Priceless.
yes, it's been priceless, truly.
Okay. How do you view the world differently now? Because, like, you know, I remember going in and then coming out, and you see everything differently. You
Oh,
know, and
absolutely.
You're not looking at anything the same way.
Yeah, well, the thing about the training too is it's very personal. So, in a lot of ways, it's a tool that I manifested. I chose to make that happen in my life, and so it's very personalized. And for me, a lot of the things I began seeing just unvarnished. I'd say things a lot more blatantly, and I still do. That's been measured a little bit now, but I'll still just speak truthfully. And there's like a deep core truth where people usually avoid. I know someone that doesn't avoid it is Logan, and I think it's actually very admirable trait to be able to just be like, okay, when I don't give a shit about something, to honestly say, look, this so doesn't matter to me, because the opposite side of that is what people mollycoddle other people, not giving them the truth. To me, that's less loving than if someone were to just give me the straight up unvarnished truth and be like, look, this is what I see or this is what I feel. To me, it would feel more honestly loving for someone to come from a space of I truly hate you than I fake like you.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. You know.
And it serves more for me because that's actual feedback. It's not like I'm living in a house of glass mirrors where it's just everybody telling me what I want to hear.
So how have you noticed, like, with being more truthful with not only yourself but others, including relationships with your family, friends, a girl, whatever it looks like, what has been like a difference in that?
Well, there's just like a lot less, not just in like, there's a lot less fog. A lot of issues I found for me were coming from that bullshit side where it's like, if I just honestly, unvarnishedly look at my emotion, like, okay, generally it's simple. I'm frustrated about X, Y, or Z. Where all of the issues would come, denying the emotion, pretending it's not there, or not voicing it. Whereas if I choose into just being like, oh, it's absolutely this, then when I'm in a relationship, I'm just honest about it. I'm like, look, that doesn't work for me. That's so not working for me. Whether it be a relationship, sexual, friendship, family, whatever it is. Just like, no. Just to be my stand for myself and say, just no.
So having complete clarity.
Complete clarity, it takes all of the guessing out.
Yeah.
And that's where, for me, so much of the bullshit would stack up, is everybody's guessing and trying to mind read each other in my relationships, because that's how I showed up in it in a lot of ways, because I was like, oh, you know, I want to be sweet and I don't want to be rude. It's not a negative emotion to be honest. That's a big thing that I found, where it's like, I can speak for myself, and it's actually more loving and creates a better space than if I were just to lie or not speak my piece and try to smooth it over with over essence of kindness and be like, oh no, this totally doesn't bother me. You're so awesome. You're so amazing. Whereas if I just came at it from, that's fucking stupid. That doesn't work for me. I hate that. Then the issue resolves itself right there in whatever way it does. And for me, I find then it's not plaguing me later on. I don't choose into this frustration when I'm alone and being like thinking on it, constantly thinking on something. Because one of the things I found, the hardest part of anything, hardest part of any task for me is thinking about it. Even something as simple as like, oh, I got to clean my room and do my laundry. Sit there and just bitch and moan about it for 30 hours, or not even do it for a day or two. Be like, oh, I got to clean my room. When I do it, it takes 15 minutes and it's done before I realize I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Every process in my life has been like that, where it's just like, oh, I can actually let go of that beginning buffer and just do something rather than thinking on it forever. And that's actually even been something that spread into sexuality and everything for me. Thinking about it, it's like, this is a truth that I found for myself. There is no wrong emotion. There's no wrong emotion. There are actions that don't serve, but there's no wrong emotion. So the only time that I find that there's an issue or some sort of energetic congestion for me is when I see either anger or sexuality or any sexual energy, any sort of emotion passing in my space that I'm feeling. The only time that it really gives me any sort of frustration or dissonance in myself is when I latch onto it, right? That's what I've found. Like, if I just let things flow, boom, 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 it's so easy. Mm-hmm. And so that's something big that I've found. And generally that's just what I've been seeing in my life. And that's something that's spread to all of my life and has made everything easier. Like before I chose into this space and looking at things unvarnishedly like that, there was a lot of even bullshittery around spirituality and all of these things. Dissonance between words and actions. Well, when I'm unvarnishedly honest, there can be things where I'm just like, that honestly has no bearing on me. I really couldn't give a shit. Or I just embody it. If it's something that I honestly give a shit about, I embody it. And so that's something big as well. Making the bridge from words to action and switching the flip from constant menstruation and thought over and over to just purely this taking something for what it is and doing it or not doing it, and then simply letting it go.
Yeah. I read a book recently that says, "Don't trust your thoughts." I think it was called that. But yeah, it was talking about that. Like people are kind of depressed and stressed and anxious because they overthink. That's the only reason. Once you stop thinking about things too much and just let it pop in and pop out, like you were saying, that flow, then that's where you can let go of a lot of that stress.
Yeah, one thing I
awesome.
do know though is like, even though it's true that there's this quote by Sam Harris. He said if the muscle burn from working out was actually a symptom of a disease, it would be unbearable. But because you think of it in a productive space, it feels good. Mm-hmm. A lot of things in life are like that. So like giving credence to that idea that not thinking about things is a very useful tool. But also what comes up to me, and what I feel when we're talking about this is there's this old Zen proverb about some student coming to one of the masters, and he said, well, try to let go of your ego. He's like, okay. He goes off. He says, try to be enlightened, or try to let go, or something like that. Regardless, he comes back and he's like, I find that the more that I try not to try, I'm trying. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, don't try too much to not try. And then he comes back again and he's like, don't try too much to not try to try. And so it keeps going in a cycle like that, where if I find myself blocking or resisting my thoughts, that's another form of me grasping at them. So like there's like this weird paradox I find in all spirituality like this, which I actually think is a lot of the point. It's a tool this way, where you come to a point of ultimate frustration because it's like trying to get there, you can't get there. Not trying to get there, you can't get there. Do you know what I mean? So there comes kind of this cycle until I ultimately get so frustrated that I'm like, throw the whole bag out. Who gives a shit? That's when I'm there. I'm like, oh, okay, I see. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things that came up for me was like, when I try not to think, I'm simply just thinking about not thinking. You know what I mean? If the ego can't destroy itself. It can definitely try, but it's going to just try. It's not going to get it done. So like part of that flow for me has just been the flow of thoughts even. But like looking at them like they're just passing. Like, oh, that's a thought. I get to look at that, whatever. But not having any tie to it, like not being invested really. Just being like, oh, okay, that's a thought, that's a feeling, whatever. Let it pass. It's just a thought and feeling. So that's been a large shift for me. Okay.
And how does this, I'd say, mental switch and spiritual switch, like, how's that correlated in your physical day-to-day life?
I used to bitch and moan a lot more about work. It's just an experience now. I go and I can actually enjoy it. I don't have to, like when I'm going in to do something, like the hardest part of my day was thinking about my day. And when I'm just doing it, then I can kind of be off doing whatever in my head, or not even being in my head, just doing whatever the task is. And it's done in 5 seconds. And then when I'm not so in my head about it, I can actually enjoy the experiences that are there for me. Because I'm actually in the space.
The secret to procrastination. Like to getting rid of it
is what I just said, just going for it.
Yeah.
Just being
don't
there.
Think about it. Just start and then go. Mm-hmm. It's the first step.
It's worked pretty well. Like even for a lot of the things relationship wise, like if I'm having any dissonance there, it's like if I address something when it's there, it's like 2 inches tall. If I wait, give it 3 days, it's a 9-foot thing that I have to fight. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily a fight, but it certainly feels like it presents itself that way when it's not just addressed, when it's simple.
Yeah. 10-minute task will take up 8 hours of your mind.
Yeah. Are you currently in a relationship with a Whammons or with a dude?
Something like that. I'll just keep it discreet for now, but
okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's been very rewarding. I've learned a lot, especially with how I presence myself in the space of feminine energy, for sure, because there used to be a lot of frustration there, simply because I would overinvest and grasp onto certain feelings and not speak my piece. I wasn't in the relationship because it was constantly like just leaf in the wind. I'd just blow over at anything that was said. I was like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. It doesn't bother me that much, and I don't care to get into it, so I can just let it pass because I know that it's not going to bother me that much to just let it pass, and it would be more important to her. Well, turns out that's a load of shit.
Doormat syndrome.
Yeah, just what definitely happens is, oh, it's not a big deal to me. That's me bullshitting myself. I'm like, it's not a big deal. It's like, you're only saying that because you're feeling something about it. Then I wait, like, frustrated about it. Still don't say anything about it. And then so much time has passed. I'm like, I'd look like a dickwad, whatever. Caring about what other people think too much. Whereas I'm actually an individual in a relationship with another individual, rather than it being in a lot of ways dependent. Mm-hmm. So that's been one of the big steps for me, where I can just interact with feminine energy in a way where I'm just presencing myself, no bullshit, and then in that way I've also found I don't even think about it. I just don't even think about it because I showed up as me. I don't have to second guess it or think about it. It's just like, oh, this is how I showed up. I was honest. I wasn't overly sparky about it. I wasn't overly frictious. I just spoke my piece. Then we move forward. So it's been nice on my end. And I've also noticed the relationships just go smoother. Mm-hmm. Any relationship with feminine energy, whether it be friends, family, sexual, whatever it is, relationship-wise, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's so much more, it's so much smoother and that's been reflected in all of my life, even with masculine energy. It's just so much smoother. I don't have to, life doesn't have to be hard for me, which has been perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So would you say there's been a literal paradigm shift in you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. A large paradigm shift. And one of the things I get to remind myself often, and I know that seems odd and contradictory, but there's times where you can remind yourself, and I do that often when I feel like I get into a space of like that mental cycle. I can be like, hey, do you remember that you know this shit? You have the tools, just implement them. And so that's been awesome too, to be able to be my own backing. Mm-hmm. But with the paradigm shift, like you were talking about, Logan, I definitely have felt that just in the way that I show up with people. I don't need to mask up. I don't need to play the game. I can, if something's funny, I'll laugh. If it's not, I'm not going to give you a courtesy laugh. I'm not going to bullshit cry for you. Not that I ever did that. I've never had the ability. But to be like, oh, in the grungies with people, in the sadness, it's like, I don't honestly feel that. I'm not going to presence that. It's like, okay, for some reason, I'm not feeling that. Okay, that's perfect. That's how I'm showing up. That works for me. Like, and a lot of times I'll find later on people be like, yeah, I actually wasn't in that emotion. I was masking up. I'm like, that could be one of the reasons that I didn't feel it, or I just don't feel it. I don't need to be 1,000% invested emotionally in whatever they're talking about to hear them, which has also been it's been so nice.
Gucci.
It's been very nice.
All right, I've got another question. So before you were kind of like trying the minimalistic thing. Has this changed your view on money or anything, or is it kind of
yeah, it's actually changed my view on wealth entirely. Before, it was just like that energy flow thing I was talking about, grasping at it, worry on it, all of these things. It's like, I'm just going to let it flow in my life. Who cares? Just let it flow. It's like, it's not an issue. It's going to be there for me. I've always had enough. I've always had more than enough, and I'll continue to do so. I have more money in my bank account now than I ever have. And I haven't made huge shifts or anything like that outside of just letting it the hell go. Just being like, okay. And a lot of that, it's possible, is because I haven't been going out and doing as many things. The things that I've been doing haven't been as expensive. But also that's just how it manifested in my life. That's how it worked for me. I was just like, okay, I'm not going to be sitting there constantly belly aching over, am I going to make the next thing? Am I going to be able to pay this next bill? It's wealth flows through my life in every form that it is.
That's
Whether
why
that be
I had a hard time budgeting because of that, because it consumed my life. I was always thinking about money, and I hated it. So I had to stop. It bothered me way too bad. It was everything. It was worrying about it day and night. How much am I spending? What am I not spending? Just had to stop. Bothered. Now, yeah, I have way more money saved than I have previously.
I've let the wife run the budget for months, and she's doing awesome. I look at my bank account maybe once a month. And, yeah, we're just rolling in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been sweet
fun.
because like it was also taking it out of just the money field of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even though I could say I know that wealth isn't money, it's not something that I was feeling or actioning in my thoughts and life.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could be like, yes, sure, intellectually I know that wealth comes in many different forms, but to actually feel it and be there for it and be like, an experience with my friends, that's wealth. And anything really, anything that I find gives me value is wealth. So just to let that flow, I've found it in so many more places. Random trips, my friends are like, hey, we're going up to this yurt on my parents' property, clear out in Heber, wherever we're going. Boom, 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 things like that. People just buy me meals, and it's not that I'm being grubby about it and like, oh, I don't want it. No, I was going to go pay for it, and they're like, no, don't worry about it. Just things like that, where before I wouldn't be accepting of gifts, and I would put off that energy as well, and it just reflected back at me. So letting everything flow, I've found so much more in my life, so that's been awesome as well.
Hell yeah.
I think that's awesome. So back to the relationship thing, what, like, especially with feminine energy, has it been better like communication, being straightforward with them? Because I know with feminine energy, they kind of like to jump around a lot, where guys is like, straight to the fucking point. There's a nail in your forehead.
Yeah.
So how's that been for you with being like, okay, this isn't working?
Yeah.
And then are they like, do they get kind of retracted, or are they more engaging and like, okay, absolutely, let's communicate about that? Because you do bring up the feminine energy often.
Yeah, because
So I
it's
feel
been-
like we could dive deeper into that.
Oh, definitely we can. It's been such a big transition for me. Is one of the reasons I've talked about it so often. And in a relationship, how that's shown up for me, even being direct about it, I'm actually being able to voice my opinion and my space has given me so much more patience to be in that space. It's like before I'd be frustrated while listening because I didn't speak what I was feeling. And one of the analogies I kind of came to is for feminine energy, say, just follow me on this for a minute. Say two people go scuba diving. You're going down to dive to grab something. A woman's energy, or a feminine energy, I feel dives down, circles around, picks up a few more things along the seafloor, spirals around until they grab the tool. Then they come back up. For me, my masculine energy says, there's the tool. I see it on the bottom of the ocean floor. I dive straight down and I grab it and I come back up. I might get more learning from spiraling around that. It's faster for me to go directly down. So whereas my masculine energy does a series of dives to get whatever tool I'm looking for in life or whatever emotion I'm feeling, I dive down, come back up. And it's just like it's like a sewing needle, up and down. Dive down, grab it, come back up. Dive down, grab it, come back up. Whereas a lot of feminine energy, I feel spirals in and then grabs the tool. Now, they because of the spiraling in, they might grab 2 or 3 tools while they're there. So I feel a lot of times they get more wisdom out of their journey because it takes a bit longer, or it's less directed. It doesn't necessarily need to take longer, but that's one of the ways that I felt it. For me, I'm like, okay, just grab it and then I'm out. Quick like that. Takes a little bit longer, gets more out of it. So it's almost the same pace, just the way that it manifests is different. Because if I dive down a series of 3 times in the time that it takes her to spiral to grab that tool, she might get 3 tools and the tool. I'll get the 3 tools that I dive down for. So it's just a different approach, I feel. And for me, when I've seen that, being able to speak my piece and be like, it's just this for me. Quick. Okay. I've spoke my piece. I can actually be actively listening and be there for it and be engaged and feel that without having any of that frustration that feels like I have to silence my voice for it. And it's not like I've had to conjure any extra compassion either. It's just when I've spoke my voice, so I'm content. I've done what I needed to do. And then I can show love through being that for her then, in whatever way that shows up. And I'm not overly, let's say, overly energetically frustrated or throwing more in than I need to, and she feels more heard. So that's one of the things I was going to say is it's been like a lot better flow because I've spoken my piece and been my stand for me. The flow's been better because she feels like I'm actually in the relationship, and she feels more heard because I'm actually there when she's speaking. So that's a big thing that I've found.
So it has just been beneficial.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
I remember before Impacts, you really liked to circle before you hit the point. Has that changed quite a bit then?
Quite a bit, yeah. Because for me, a lot of that circling, showing up as a more feminine energy was for me, it was for a lot of those masks. Now, that's not for everyone, but for me, it was. It was like, oh, I want to be super soft about it and go around it and around it to find it. When I'm true to myself and I don't have it and just unvarnished, like, look, this is how the fuck I see it. This is how it's showing up. Boom. Say it, do it, it's done. 5 seconds flat. Easier. That's how my energy shows up when I'm not guarding it. Or when I'm not grasping onto it, when I just let it flow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So could you order your own food now?
Yes, Logan, I can.
Well, you got to tell the story behind it now.
Please.
You go ahead.
Well, I don't even remember. What restaurant was it?
Leatherby's.
Okay, so we were at Leatherby's, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because I don't recall 100%. But we were at Leatherby's, and Jacob was taking forever to order. So Noah just stepped in and was like, he'll take this, this, and this. And Jacob was like, uh-huh. And so hence the reason why I'm asking,
yes.
Could you order your own food now?
Yes, I can. It's everything's just a lot more, not hasty. It just flows a lot more easily, and I get to conclusions faster.
You find yourself committing to your conclusions?
Yeah, and it's easy because I'm like, okay, whatever, I can just dedicate to this because this feels right, and I feel the truth in it. And if I get to tweak that later, perfect. As for now, this serves. Whereas I could sit there and think on that thing for 3 damn days, and then finally be like, all right, I feel that this is close enough to work. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I got a tool that was pretty much the same tool if I had just jumped. If I had just been like committed, whatever, that works. And it's not even so much whatever. It's like, that's what I want. Going for it. So, yeah, I definitely felt that.
Pretty fun, isn't it?
So much more simple.
Well, I'm sure it's good for a lot of listeners to hear that because beforehand, for me at least, when it came to feminine energy, for example, I would play the runaround games to make them feel like, ease and flow, whatever, where deep inside, in my mind, if I bring up an issue, then it's going to explode and everything's going to be ruined. And so, yeah, being direct and being like, no, knock the shit off. Let's pull our heads out of our asses. Just straight to the point. Then, for me, I'm like, okay, that feels good because that thing is no longer even existent. And then for her, might piss her off for 5 minutes. And then she's like, oh, look at that. Yeah, it clearly didn't work. Make a switch. Mm-hmm. Where instead of just bottling it all up and then one day it's going to fucking pop like a volcano. And then, yeah, there's your real reason for everything ending.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good to put that out there and be like, it's so beneficial to just be
open.
Have intentions for what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. And I definitely felt that when you were talking about like the fear because I've definitely felt that too where it's like, oh, I was almost on the verge of being fearful to say anything because I felt that it would bring up all this big problem if I were to voice my opinion or be in the relationship. And I found it was the exact opposite. In feeling that, I presenced that. And so I would do that thing where I'd do the runaround, and then it would volcano because of all the unsaid things, be like, oh, there's my proof. every time I speak, it blows up. No, I pressure cookered it. All of my shit I'd keep in a pressure cooker. And then eventually the thing gets enough pressure that it pops. And I'm like, then it comes from a space that's not, I put on extra energy to it, right? If I had just addressed it in the space that it was in, all of that extra frustration or whatever was there wouldn't be there. And I could do it, say something level-headedly and in a space of peace and just be like, this is what it is for me. There's no frustration attached to it. You're perfect how you are, but this is exactly where I am, and I'll tell you what does and doesn't work for me.
Yeah, because if not, then it turns into a revenge thing. At least
Yeah.
that's what it was for me. Like,
Oh,
yeah, you want to know what you've done? Boom, 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 boom.
Scores, yeah.
Like, imagine him being a fucking child, because
Yep.
that's what that shit is.
And it's definitely, I don't demonize it really. I just know that it didn't work for me, because I know that's in so many relationships. Like, you name it. Full-grown adults, 5-year relationships, 10-year relationships, you name it. It's a tool that a lot of people haven't picked up. I feel very fortunate to have chosen into that at my age, because from now to the future, I get to have that tool to be like, oh, relationships are just easy. And when one comes to a conclusion or keeps going, I know that I've spoken my piece. So there's also not even that hanging on friction. Like, there's not that dependency because I don't feel the unsaid words and, oh, I wish I would have done more. I'm like, okay, I'm completely content where I am because I've spoken my piece. So that's also been very nice, where it's like there's none of the fear of separation or anything like that, because I definitely used to have that. I feel a lot of people have that, where there's that kind of fear of separation, like, oh, everything's going to end at some point, or things like that, which I feel comes a lot from a space of attachment that I had, where it's like my identity is dependent on yours, which is an unvarnished thing to say. And a lot of people don't want to say that because everyone would like to think that they're not that. But results speak, absolutely. And they did in my relationships, so that's how I see that.
Just had to drink some onion banana juice.
What?
It's from Avatar: The Last Airbender, yeah. That's a good meme.
That's a good
no
episode.
attachments.
Yeah.
But that even comes back to the masculine energy. What guy? It's just the same across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Just fucking speak with intention.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like
guys,
you. Adios.
Give you some good advice. When this shit inevitably comes up again with your women,
Mm-hmm.
and they start playing the same games, you say, no, I'm not playing this game. End of story. And then they're all, and
Yeah.
just like, no, I'm not participating in this. Just not.
I've
And
actually
that's that.
I've actually engaged in that, but in an energetic space, where I'm like, okay, you can speak, and it's not that I won't hear you, but I'm definitely not engaging on an emotional level. Okay, I'll let you run the treadmill if that's what you're choosing to do, and that's the space for you, and you feel that it serves, go right ahead. But I don't have to be invested in it outside of hearing you, which has worked for me a lot, because I feel a lot of the times for feminine energy, they want to be heard. Mm-hmm. That's how a lot of love is translated. Well, for me specifically, in my masculine energy, I was talking to Logan about this. Like, if I'm asking for feedback, or if I'm like, hey, I'm having this problem in my life or challenge in my life, he'll be like, look, it's just fucking this. It absolutely, you're overcomplicating it. This is the problem. It's right here. You just are refusing to look at it. That works for me. That feels more like love to me than you're amazing and you're perfect, but maybe it possibly could be something like this. But you're also amazing and perfect, overbalancing it. I'm like, no. I get where you're coming from. Know that you care about me, but that's not what I'm asking for. For me, what works is that. Like one of my friends, Preston, like if I'm getting on to bullshit and I'm in my head and on some spiel, he'll be like, oh, Jacob, shut the fuck up. That to me feels more like love. I'll laugh my ass off because it snaps me right back out of that space. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm on about bullshit. Masculine energy, that's how that works for me. The other way around, a lot of the time, feminine energy, it likes the softer approach because it is more like moonlight than it is like sunlight. For masculine energy, it's directed. It's a ray. Moonlight, I feel, bathes things. Now, this isn't universal, obviously, and everyone has a proportion of masculine and feminine energy in them. And it's not always the space to deliver it like that. But for me, that's what's worked. But I've noticed definitely in my relationships for the feminine energy, that's not something that would work for them. It would piss them off, and then they would be frustrated and distant. Not that they wouldn't come back around, but that's just not what serves. So that's what I found.
But it's okay for them to be pissed off.
Oh, no, that's one of the things that I was talking about earlier, and what I definitely feel. There are no wrong emotions. Like, I don't judge or push it on anyone that it would be a negative thing for them to feel anything. It's perfect how they're showing up, but one thing that I definitely get a presence is what I'm feeling and what works for me. And because I create the space for them to presence what they're feeling and what works for them, I accept reciprocation because that's what works in a relationship. That's what I found across the board. Reciprocation works, communication works. When it's a one-way flow of energy, which is what I chose into in the past, frustration happens. It feels leechy, and it's 100% been me manifesting that. Because I wouldn't say something, and I would feel like I'm giving out more than I'm getting, and then you start keeping checkbooks. Oh, well, this is what you've done. This is what you've done. These are all of the things that I've done for you. And then all of a sudden, things that could be beautiful gifts, all of a sudden have these strings attached to where it's like, oh, I've done this for you, I've done this for you, I've done this for you. And then that would come up in fights or whatever it is. Now, it's not even the case because I'm not attached to it like that. So that's one of the things I definitely wanted to presence is there is no wrong emotion. But there are definitely actions that don't serve. If some things just don't work.
Are there wrong actions?
In a broad sense, no. I think in a broad sense, no. There are things that don't work though. That's definitely what I found. Say, wrong is a moral application, whereas things not working is kind of more unvarnished. There's not the emotion tied as much to it. So it's like, okay, does that work? Does that work for you and the people around you? Okay, if it does, perfect. If it doesn't, maybe that's something to take a look at because things that don't work don't last very long, and everything has checks and balances. So that's kind of how I've been looking at it.
Are we about to get into the same conversation we had with Mo boys?
No.
Oh,
we
dang
absolutely
it. All
can.
right, we don't have to.
We absolutely can, but it'll be short.
Oh, will it?
It'll be shorter. I don't have the moral implication that right and wrong are a thing that actually exists in a tied down way. I think there are things that do and don't work, but that's I'll give kind of that synopsis. I would love to get into it more. If that's something that would serve on the podcast for you guys. It works for me, but whatever works for you guys.
Let's first talk about Jacob for just a second. So we've had you on a few times. What's that?
I have a question. But go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to ask you my question, then we'll ask you a question. Okay. So we've had you on a few times.
Yes.
Yeah, we only had you on as like we'll say the first time as a guest about
Yes.
a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
How has your life changed since then? We just talked about impact. What other changes have occurred in your life since then, and have they been for the positive? Have they been for the negative? And then where's your life going?
So a lot of what I was talking about definitely is a direct correlation. Being able to just jump to action and not sit and think about it for 7 hours has been awesome. Things that I want to invest in, I do. My relationships with people have grown in a way that is perfect to me. Totally works. Mm-hmm. There's a lot less frustration. There's not any fog, and when there is, I quickly address it, and then it's gone. So a lot of the things that have changed in my life is the flow of wealth, like I was talking about. I have more money in my life because it's just wealth, and I let it flow through my life, and I don't grasp at it. I have way better relationships, specifically with myself. Used to be constantly crucifying myself over past things and all sorts of stuff that way.
It's the reason you were called Cocaine Jesus.
Certainly. But that was actually a very fitting moniker, because I definitely would crucify myself just like that. Be like, oh, I did something bad, pay penance. It's like those negative and positive things where I can now just be like, oh, that doesn't work for me. Let it go. Mm-hmm. Okay. Noted. Moving forward, if it doesn't work, don't do it. And
okay.
and I definitely see also the measure of what I actually am invested in by my actions now. And so my words reflect that even more, because if I'm like, oh, I'll do that, and then I don't do that, I'm like, okay, so I committed to that, but I didn't do it. That means that I really wasn't that invested. I will not commit to that again unless I truly feel investment. Awesome. I don't need to crucify myself over that either. So it's like it's not a serious failing in me to learn. And so that's also been a thing where I've been able to just take life as is and not have to put all of these beliefs and structures on top of it. I can just be like, okay, this is what it is. Either I can look at it like an object rather than like, oh, I feel this and I am my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the ways that it's changed largely. And in the objective world, like I said, the flow of wealth, money, things like that, it's been a lot smoother.
And you
yeah.
mentioned a new car.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to choose.
Jacob mentioned a new car.
Yeah, I'm going to choose into that after I'm done with impact bills.
Mm-hmm.
It's about damn time.
Yeah. Well, I want to, and where it even presents too, which was interesting to me, is I was like, it wasn't like, oh, I want a new shiny car. It was like, I choose to go on long drives. I want to go see the ocean. I want to go to these places, and I'm tying myself down with this car, taking on the impact payments. I was like, when these payments are gone, I have more than enough to be able to get whatever car I need to go wherever I would like to go.
And you'll have AC.
And thank God I'll
and
have
your car
AC.
can lock.
Do you not have more than enough now?
I'm content, but I can choose into more. And it's not greedy or like, because that's something that I used to be into, where it was that thing where I was like forcing humility on myself.
Mm-hmm.
When it's that there's this saying, it's like, so it's equally honorable to eat off silver spoons as if they were wooden, as it is to eat off wooden spoons as if they were silver. So it's just the energy with which I go at it. So I'm definitely grateful for all of the things that I have, but to choose into more doesn't mean that I'm less appreciative of what I have,
Mm-hmm.
which has also been awesome because I can just let that flow in my life. That being said, with the minimalism, like you were talking about earlier, Zave, it's not me choosing into minimalism because what it used to be was for the humility aspect. I don't give a shit about that. The minimalism now is like, okay, these things are things I actually don't value, yet they're in my space. There's not a lot of things that I actually use or value. But if it clutters my space, then my mind feels cluttered. And so I just choose out of that energy. Like, no, that doesn't work for me. Get that shit out of there. And if I do have a lot of things, it will be because they're things that I find useful and I use.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to buy this new car, hit up your boys. We've got some experience in buying cars.
I absolutely will.
So, I know your relationship with your dad has been kind of a shit show, in the past at least.
Mm-hmm. When I was younger, we definitely had contention. We both chose into that, yeah.
Even up to a couple months ago, there was contention to a certain extent.
Yeah, it was different.
Yeah, I don't know the extremes of as a child. Moral of the story: how has that changed now?
Yeah, so at the beginning, when I like in middle school and stuff, we used to have a lot of contention, a lot of frustration with each other, and not seeing eye to eye, different things like that, and that would show up in a bunch of different ways. Whether we would both get into a fight physically, verbally, whatever it was, it would definitely we'd go downtown for it. We'd be there for it.
Yeah.
And that's changed a lot even before impact or any choosing into any of that energy. It definitely smoothed out and softened a lot, and we both kind of grew together and kind of like two rocks in a tumbler, smoothed each other out. That being said, there was still barbs and things, right? That like we'd get into a conversation, his frustration would show up, or my frustration would show up, and the other person would choose into it. And then there's the spark. One of the things I've found is if someone offers me frustration, well, I also have chosen out of creating the space of frustration because I just take an honest look at it. I'm like, Jacob, why are you so frustrated? It's almost always tied to something else. Because the energy that shows up in my space almost never is large enough to warrant the amount of frustration that's there. So a lot of the times, I've always been looking at this. I pull all the energy from past experiences that feel like that all the way to the forefront of things that I haven't looked at, let go, or considered. along with whatever the situation is. And so I made that preface because if someone offers that energy in my life, be it my dad, a coworker, whoever it is, I know that I can just choose out. Like, something that people don't really consider. Someone's like, fight me. No. Well, then what then? Or just walking away. All of these things are different options, but just choosing out of that energy or going about it in a way that's reasonable, that you can see how futile or really meaningless it is to choose into that energy. Like, someone offers me frustration, and I'm just like, okay. The energy of okay, rather than, all right, motherfucker, we're going toes. One of our heads is going to roll. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Instead of matching that energy, I can just step back. Be like, you can burn yourself out, or I can walk away, and I can just tell you this doesn't work for me. There's about 1,000 options in any given situation. That's one of the things I definitely found. But back to what you were saying, Logan. Through this process, I definitely found with my dad just an immense amount of gratitude and understanding, seeing things more on a level field where it's like, well, with what he got to presence in his life and what he learned as he was growing up, how that translated it into his life, and how the big steps that he's taken from his life when he was a kid, like the things that used to go on that way, huge things. Like I feel that people are often bleak about the now. They're like, oh, back in the day. No. My dad has given me 1,000 times better and softer raising than he got. And I've seen that with a bunch of my uncles, and from their dads, the generation down, people are like, oh, it's making them soft. No, we're doing what works. It's a positive progression, in my opinion, because people can be a lot more open. Then there's a lot more things that, when you're not repressing or choosing into all of that frustration, you have other places to put that energy, and people do. Creative endeavors, being able to openly say, oh, I have a passion in this, and not have it shoved down their throat. A bunch of different things like that. So I've seen that a lot, like having the gratitude there and still being able to be like, Dad, this doesn't work, and be able to actually listen to him and hear what he's saying. If he's saying, son, this doesn't work, instead of being like, and fuck the free world, the authority, and the cops, and you, I can be like, oh, okay. Well, there might be something to look at here, even if it's not delivered in the way that I would choose to deliver it. I don't have to choose into that energy. I can just be like, oh, okay, there's probably a modicum of wisdom in that. And if there's not, then I can just be like, thank you for your contribution. I don't feel that way, but thank you.
You sound smarter, too.
Me? Thank you.
Yeah.
Because you're not trying to sound smarter.
Oh, yeah, not trying. That's a big part. Not trying. It's so much easier.
What?
That's a good catch.
Yeah. So that's been a big change, specifically with my father, and being able to have that connection with him and be able to have that free flow, mm-hmm. where I'm not putting on masks and walls and choosing into being pissed off all of the time. The relationship is so much more rewarding, and I want to be in that space more. I actually love to hang out with my dad. And I did even before Quest, but not even to the degree that it is now. Like, my dad, I have the best time hanging out with my dad.
Yeah.
One of my best friends. He's absolutely hilarious.
The shit that he does is fucking crazy.
He's so funny.
He was talking about taking a boat down a fucking
hill?
like a hill up there.
Yeah.
People flying out and shit. I'm like, what the hell? Just in the snow. They used to play bumper cars with their real life cars up in Park City. Mm. Bro, I didn't know this shit.
Dude, I'd play bumper cars with the Sabring. Hell yeah.
If I had a
for
cheap
sure.
car, I'd go for it 100%.
I'd throw my Sonata in the mix. Easy.
Well, yeah, so that's been really cool, being able to have those connections with, and it's been broad scale. Like, these things have been applicable across the board. And even strangers or old friends, exes, whatever it is, you name it. I've been able to come at it from just such a different angle and such a more grounded and peaceful space that it's simple. I walk away from interactions feeling feeling fulfilled. And a lot of the times I used to walk away from interactions feeling frustrated and unfulfilled from the things that I would say, from my contribution. Be like, I don't feel like I said it right, or da-da-da-da. It's because I was coming from a mask place, and that wasn't my honest feeling of whatever we were talking about. And what I honestly feel generally is so fucking simple. It doesn't need to be this big, overcomplicated thing, which I used to do so much. Mm-hmm. It can just be as straightforward as whatever it is. I don't have to fake it to make it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ooh, I almost said, yeah, I'll say it.
Go for it.
You could just be like, go pin your balls against a wall.
See, I know that's the energy you choose into, and sometimes it definitely serves. And there's been times where I've even now, I'm like, oh, I actually wish I would have chosen into that energy, because that was the energy I was given. It was like, this frustration, do this. My answer can just be no. And if they choose to come at me with a certain energy, it's not untoward to be like, okay, if you want that energy matched and you want to play that game, here's how I honestly feel. If you're going to go that route and go that far, here's what I feel. Go fuck yourself. Stay out of my energetic space, and we won't have an issue. Don't come and presence yourself in my dealings, and I won't do the same for yours. But if you choose to do that, I can enlighten you and show my love through a table to your teeth. There's options like that.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one of the things I used to find too, is I would be so frustrated with a situation because I didn't say what I felt. And it's been a pretty big process for me, all the way from working with my uncles. That was a place to find my voice, not because they taught me, but because to survive, I got to speak up. And otherwise, I would be walked all over. And so it would get to the point where I was like, okay, I'm frustrated enough to kill you, so now I'll speak. and then being able to slowly integrate that and tone it down to the point where I'm like, I can just be like, no, or that doesn't work for me, or back up. Just no. Things like that actually serve, because it's not. There is a place for that energy. I have it because it's in me, because it's a tool. If someone chooses to kind of insert themselves in my space with a certain energy, that doesn't work for me, and I say, that doesn't work for me, or no, and they're insistent, there's the tool. Okay, if you want to take it here, and this is how I get you out of my space, it's definitely a possibility. But I don't have to start there. And knowing that I can be there, and knowing that I can back myself and say the things that I need to say, I don't need to say them as much. Where it's coming from the other space where I'm holding on to it and holding it back, I'd pressure cooker it, blow up over something later that was smaller. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it actually serves a lot to just be like, no, that doesn't work for me. Address it when it's there.
Do you believe in God now?
Fucking give me a minute, Christ.
Because people who come out of Impact, they'll go either way.
I actually got a lot more invested with the feeling of Christ. That would be me. I got a lot more invested with the feeling of Christ and that manifesting itself in my life, that archetype and that ideal. And I presence it that way because it's a certain energy, and it's a state of being. And people do the absolution thing. I know what it is for me. Mm-hmm. I don't need it to be anything else for anyone else. And as for God, I used to actually feel it more in the traditional sense. I used to feel it in the traditional sense and think of it in the traditional sense. You know, God is big guy on chair with gray beard.
Sky Daddy,
yeah. Sky Poppy.
Oh, yeah.
But no more Sky Poppy. It's the energy of creation. And I feel that energy in my life, but I don't overly put all of those things on it, because every time I try to speak on it and say, oh, it's this, doesn't serve. I'm like, no, it's not that. Because it's everything and it's nothing. Just that way. It's like, it's a contradiction in that I can't tie it down with words. So I definitely feel that energy and I know it, but it serves to be able to call it by many different names because it's an energy to me. And an energy of creation, and not in the way where I feel people traditionally would feel it, or where I used to traditionally feel it, which is from the space of, creation story, God is the ruler of all of these things. Yes, sure, but in a more metaphorical sense, as he's the energy of as it's the energy of creation. Not that I'm completely out of that space. You can tell that I used he instead of it, or that energy. It's definitely,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things too. It's very reflective to me. The more I look into it, the more I feel the reflection. Like, if I am of creation, then creation I am. All things like that. That's a way to say that I am that I am. But yeah. So for me, it's that way, and I definitely don't even think about it anymore. I don't think about it as much because it's integrated to me. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what this is, and if that changes, awesome. But how it's been showing up in my life and serves me, it's absolutely that.
What do you listen to nowadays?
A lot of the same things, honestly, but I hear it so differently. It's absolutely something entirely new now.
Please tell us.
Even Watts, listening to Watts, Alan Watts. Yeah. Even listening to Alan Watts has been a completely different experience because I used to look at it from the frame of that mental game, being in that space. Whereas now I just embody it and it's more action-based and I take it more literally. It's actually served me a lot more. I look at it and I'm like, okay, that's wisdom simply because of what is being said, not all of this extra shit that I would tie onto it. So I've seen that in a lot of things. I'm hearing different things because I'm listening. I'm not hearing what I'm choosing to hear or trying to hear. It's just unvarnishedly whatever I'm hearing, and I gain a lot more from it that way.
Yeah, at first, after this is not an impact sales pitch, by the way, but so after the fact, whatever, and I was like super happy. I am super happy, etc. But I was like, oh, I'm not going to listen to politics. I'm not going to listen to rap music. I'm not going to listen to murder podcasts, this and that and the other, because I don't want my brain to switch back to like, I want to fuck up the world kind of shit. But gradually I've went back to, okay, I can listen to rap music and still be happy as can be. Like, it's a completely different message coming out of it. But once I went back to the murder podcast, I got halfway through one of them. Is the only one that I listened to, and my brain was like, "Oh, I want to hurt people really fucking bad." so yeah, I still can fucking switch back in an instant, but you just got to figure out what's gonna work and what's not. Rap music, politics, fantastic. I'm back in that balls deep.
Yeah, one of the things,
to an extent, but murder, I'm still working on apparently.
One of the things that I found too is even in that same vein, I've actually experienced that in a different way. I don't experience it as much as like coming back to a space, because there was a moment when even after the processes, I was like, I found myself in a depression. I was like, what in the hell? This was an old thing that I used to do, play the depression game. Why the hell am I back here? And then I got in my head and was running on the treadmill for about an hour about it, and then I was like, okay. Sat back and I was like, just observe this, rather than being so in it. Just observe it. It's like, when I actually looked at it, I was like, this is a different space than it was, because I know that I'm choosing into it. Oh, wow, that's entirely different. I'm choosing into this experience for something, and I got to look around and be like, there's a tool here. I'm telling myself something through this. Got to look into that, found what I was looking for, and let it go like that. And so, even with old music, like, that's one of the things I would do too, is like, I wasn't choosing into rap music, I was like, no, we got to keep it good because I could fall off the wagon at any moment. That was a total fear thing for me. And going into that space and being like, no, it's not like what I am is dependent on what I hear. My being and whatever I've created and chosen into, that energy is me. And if it flippantly changes, depending on the environment, then is it something that's steadfast? And if it's not something that's steadfast, does it even serve if it's just the wind? And so that's definitely what I found. I was like, oh, I can actually go into those spaces. And like you were saying, look at it from, it's a totally different angle. I feel different things. I hear different things. And I know that I'm sufficient to any challenge that comes my way. So it's a lot easier. And it's a different space. So that's what I felt when you were talking about that. That's what came up for me.
Well, it's fun to go back.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
on occasion, for me, it's like, oh, yo, pent up pussy energy. Wah. But even with the murder podcast, I cut out that one, but then I still go back to like, I don't even know, like kidnapping stories. Just It's like, because I enjoy listening to them.
Mhm.
I think they're cool when people survive and all that. But to that extent, I don't like the feel of it. And it's not that I want to go out and fucking take someone out.
Mhm.
It's just like, that's what I enjoy. I think it's fucking cool, fascinating.
Mhm.
So, yeah, just a different perspective. Dax, Tom McDonald, all of them. Dear Alcohol, for example, I fucking love that song. Because that takes me back to the past where I would drink a lot to get rid of whatever stupid emotion was there. But now I listen to it and I'm like, hell yeah. All those emotions were badass in that second or in that moment. But now, not a part of me. Now I can just listen to the song and jam out to it.
And also,
Easy as that.
in some ways, I feel a lot of songs that used to be like that to me. Like, I was like, ooh, one of the old songs would come up, and I was like, ooh, not that energy. Then I'd listen to it, and I'd be like, that's fucking awesome. I chose out of that space. That's a literal timestamp of where I was at, and I get to look at that and compare it to where I am now, and it's a tool. What, on the one hand, what I was doing then, and to how I feel it, and what I'm doing now, are there parallels? If there are, awesome. Do they serve? No. What an awesome tool. I chose into that song to see those things. You know, it's just what works.
Yeah.
And if listening to murder podcasts doesn't work, it's awesome that you got to choose into that and choose that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But one of the things I found too is there's something to be said about there being something true and rational about going into, you know, that spiritual development space and the growing space. There's something rational about being like, okay, that's a fucking enough of that for a minute. To be able to have the balance between, because when you're constantly hitting the grind and then you still have those other feelings, it's a way of, for me at least, it's been a way of lying where I'm like, no, I'm just where I'm at, and I can choose into the other side of it and be like, okay, I get a break from that because if I'm forcing myself to be in the other side of it, it's not what I'm actually feeling, and then excuse me, and then to some degree I resent it. And then I'm not even in the space because I'm thinking about how I would feel to be in the other space. Whereas like when we were going to the movie the other day and we were like, you know what? Let's just put on this rager song.
Down with the sickness.
Down with the sickness. Jam the hell out to it. Oh yeah. And we did. Got in the energy of it, jammed out to it. And then that's where I was at the time. All of the pent up energy that I felt. I was like, I chose into that space. And then I just let it go after that. It's like, that was awesome. That was a tool. That totally worked for me. Whatever energy I was choosing into, I got to expel there, let go, and then I wanted to be back in the space of development rather than forcing myself into the space of development. And not that that's not development as well. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of an all-encompassing thing, but to look at it, for me to look at it from one angle, like it's only the positive and only the good. Well, then the good and bad part of it, throwing that on there, absolutely makes it so I'm not in it. I don't feel like it's part of the process in my life to feel the other things. I wouldn't even give a shit about the peaks if there weren't valleys. That the contrast is everything in my life. If it was all one tone, there would be no value. I couldn't give a fuck if everything was eating cake every day, sitting on the beach and having sex. I would get so bored. If all of the time it was that I would burn down a building just to feel something. To have that constantly doesn't serve. There's no progression there when it's constantly one tone. So I've even found myself going, when I'm in those valleys or those different energy, where it's not all the way up top here and I'm feeling butterflies and dandelions, I get to come down to that grunchy space for a minute where I'm like, you know, oh, this is a different energy. I can appreciate that. And I actually enjoy it. It's covered in the glow of enjoyment no matter where I'm at now. Because I don't look at it as the negative and positive, or I'm either up or I'm down. It's just the process of being. And then when I'm in those and I'm not constantly thinking, oh, I'm low. Oh, shit, I want to be out of here. I can do that thing where I can be like, well, why am I in this space? What's here for me? Because there's something enjoyable, like singing Down with the Sickness. There's something enjoyable about that music, to hit it hard and be in that emotion for a minute. Boom. Back out or stay in that for however long you want. But yeah, so that's definitely one of the things I've seen is there's this saying, like, life's a roller coaster or whatever. But I feel people hate the lows so much. It's like, that's perfect. That serves for you, whatever. For me, that's not what I choose. I get as much, if not more, from the lows and can enjoy those experiences and look at them in a space of joy and gratefulness so that my whole life is covered in that. That way I don't have to feel like, oh, it's out of this way or it's untoward. Then my feelings just flow. I don't have to grasp at them because I'm not like, this is good and this is bad. I get to pick this or this for my feelings or whatever space I'm in. So it's been pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
So what about your voice? Because you don't talk over people very often anymore. Well, around certain people.
Around my
you
family,
don't
I
have to
still
be the loudest
do.
in the room. Like, what's that about?
I found in a lot of ways that I was speaking because I didn't feel heard, and it's because I didn't feel heard by myself. I was constantly this thing where it was like, oh, I'm constantly trying to say the right thing rather than just saying what I feel at the moment or what's true to me. So it was a lot of that, and being able to come to the space where I'm like, I just want to hear people. Like, I didn't used to want to. It was like, I want to say what I want to say. I want to say what I want to say. I want to be heard. I want to be heard. When I feel heard, the person that I wanted to feel heard by was myself. I wanted to tune in and listen to myself and what I was actually feeling and what I was actually thinking or wanting to say. After I say that, I'm content. And then I love to hear what other people are thinking. And I've always had this joy of a completely opposite opinion than mine. I've always had the joy of, like, debate. It used to be debate. Now I love exchanging of thoughts. Like, when someone is so far unrelated to me in their ways of thought, I'm like, that's new. That's fun. How did you get to where you're at? That's awesome. You know, it's more like looking at a work of art than it is looking at you're not thinking right, or you're not having the same opinions as me, and I get to change you to the path. It's like, no, I don't give a shit. I'd be bored if you weren't you. If everyone was thinking the same as me, I'd as soon blow my brains out. That'd be boring as shit. So, yeah.
So why do you still feel you have to around your family?
Oh, a lot of the times I've chosen into that because I still feel unheard in that space. And a lot of that is a reflection of me because I didn't feel I didn't feel heard when I was younger. And so it was still pulling that energy from the past, which I've gotten a lot more flow in it. Like, it's a lot easier now for me to just let most of it go and want to just listen to what they're saying because I enjoy it. But there's still some of those times where I'll be like, oh, you're pulling energy from the past. And it's awesome for me to be able to see that, be in that learning experience, you know?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh, deep question incoming.
No, not a deep question. Not this one. So I'm going back to your financial situation.
Get after it.
Have you thought, or have you had any more desire to budget?
Yes.
Or anything like that?
Absolutely, yeah. I was actually going to
Really?
talk to you about it the night that we were hanging out by the fire, but I felt it served more to just have the flow of conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely have been thinking about it more. And not in a space where I'm like, grasp at it. You need to do this. I'm like, no, it would serve. It would serve to be like, okay, I get a budget for these things and then have this leftover cash that I get to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will always have that. And not that it's not that I'm letting go of there's wealth always flows through my life. That's still true. But it would also serve to choose in which directions it's flowing,
Mm-hmm.
which is an option. So I definitely have thought about it more. For the things that I want to do. I want to go on more trips. It used to be more dismal. My choices and my thoughts were more dismal. I'm like, if I choose to make it to the next month and not just blow my head off, then maybe I'll do something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, I want to go on a trip to Alaska. I want to see the Northern Lights. I'd love to see the pyramids of Egypt. All of these different things. You know, I want this cool
They're
thing.
beautiful, aren't they?
Oh yeah, those are the things that I now want. I choose into. I'm like, those would be badass experiences. And so one of the tools that I can use is to choose where where that energy of wealth flows, and flow it towards that. So that's one of the reasons I've definitely been thinking about that. We'll share.
There was a YouTuber. I was listening to a podcast, and this guy, he climbed up to pyramids or whatever, and he was recording it because he's a vlogger. He's a YouTuber, and all the police and shit were like, "Get down from there," et cetera, and he ended up pulling out the SD cards of the camera or the cameras, whatever it was, and shoved it up his ass. And so and then he wrapped it in a condom, double knotted, or was it 2 condoms? Whatever the hell. So he shoved it up his ass, and then he's like, "Oh, it's not far enough up there because they're gonna search him in jail." So he shoved it up further.
It got stuck.
No, and then once they sent him to jail, then he was shitting. Kept on shitting, and he's like, "I'd sift through my shit," and he never found them. They're gone. Like, they're in his body somewhere. That's the dude who did 60 grams or whatever of shrooms.
Oh my.
Holy fuck.
Is he?
It's Vitali.
Oh, Vital. Okay.
He's fucking crazy.
Superhero journey.
Yeah, I was like,
He superheroed his ass into jail when he beat up a girl
What?
on shrooms.
yeah, no shit. I mean, that's like, you don't touch that much.
No.
That's like that'll fuck up your brain. For sure.
Yo, he's fucked up.
You might be a superhero though. You never know. Take all those. All of a sudden, his brain grows 3 sizes.
You would think mushrooms start growing out of his head.
Yeah, no thanks.
No.
It's crazy.
That's
You would
hilarious,
lose
though.
touch of everything.
That's hilarious though.
How's your relationship with drugs changed?
Oh my gracious. I don't smoke weed anymore.
Now you just deal it.
Yeah, I don't even deal it. I wish. That'd probably be a good opportunity to flow wealth through my life. No,
It's fun too.
I used to be in love with Mary Jane. We had a faithful, loving relationship in marriage. She never cheated on me, always treated me sweetly. But what definitely happened is after this process, I was like, it's like, okay, I get to see if this still serves me because I fucking love that shit. Took a few edibles. It's like, it's going to be awesome. It's like, it was lackluster. It's like, what the fuck's going on here? This isn't serving me like I wanted it to. And I was hanging out in the experience, and it wasn't negative. I was just like, I more enjoy consciousness. Just my general everyday consciousness. I feel the giddy feelings that it used to make me feel generally. And so to feel that cotton-headed feeling is almost all that I gained. That being said, it's not like I'm adverse to ever doing it again, but after that experience, I was like, I don't even really choose into this anymore. And if I were to choose into it, I'd totally be lying to myself and chasing an old high. So I was like, well, shit. I'm not even going to use it again. I know that. I'm not going to use it steadily or in a way that it would serve me. So I was like, hit up some of my friends. I was like, anybody want some free shit? Boom. I don't even use it anymore. That being said, oh, and alcohol, I never gave a shit for anyways. Just so doesn't serve. Always stomach aches and bullshit. And a lot of the parties I'd go to, even then, before my experience that way, of finding a lot of cool things through the tools that I chose into. I never really cared for alcohol that way anyways. There'd be a lot of parties I'd go to, and I'm like, I'm just not drinking tonight. I just choose not. I just choose out. I can have as much fun, if not more, just hanging out with all my people. And a lot of the times, I feel people will go drink that way so that they can let down these guards and barriers and be lovey and jokey and be in a space of connection. Like, I fucking have that. I don't need to play the game. I'm already that way. If you choose out of that, dope.
What about shrooms?
Shrooms? I've definitely wanted to go back into that journey because I've always held shrooms in. So there was one time where I just was like, I want to have a shrooms experience, and I forced it. It's like okay, well that wasn't as serving as if I just let it come naturally or whenever it was ready. But generally on the broad scale, my experience with shrooms has been a very respectful one. I have respect for it, and I've used it in spaces with that respect glowing around it, where it's definitely served. It's been a very beautiful and cool experience every time. I would love to go back into it. That being said, when it's ready, you know what I mean? Mm. So, that's not something that I do often anyways, or did often. It was every once in a while I would be like, oh, this gets to presence itself in my life because I know that there's going to be a cool tool there or experience there. So I haven't chosen into it since, but I would love to, just whenever that space presences itself and it's, right time, right place, things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's another thing of not grasping at shit. It's just like, sure, if that comes up in my space and I choose into it, awesome. And if not, no big deal. One of the things I have kept is nicotine. In a lot of ways, it definitely serves me, and I choose into it often because I love it. There's definitely, I'm sure, some of the addiction aspect, which take it or leave it, it's not holding me there. I continually choose into it because I love it. During the day, it's a space, it's a tool that reminds me, you can take a moment to just fucking breathe. You don't need to be running the clock and pounding it out all the time. You're getting your shit done in a timely fashion, and you're working well. That being said, it doesn't need to be a rat race in your head. And just being like, oh, here's a treat. I can hit this and chill for a minute in my space, then continue going and not feel like it's a rush. So I've used it that way. It's definitely been a tool in a lot of ways.
I'm addicted as fuck to it.
Yeah.
That being said, for me, there's been times where I've chosen out of it. Like, I went a couple weeks without it. Not even too long ago. It's like, okay, I choose out of this. Then I was like, that sounds delicious. I want that. Chose back in. So knowing that I can just let it go or grab it, whatever I want, I've chosen into it pretty steadily. So yeah, that's kind of how my relationships with drugs has gone since then. My relationship with substances that alter perception. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like this impact was fairly beneficial for your life.
Extremely. And I won't go preaching the good Lord's word, but I would absolutely say, if you ever have an inkling to do it, anyone, absolutely do it. But don't, because people put a lot of things on it. It's a tool. Go in there with the space of it's a tool, and I get to learn things, and I'm choosing the tool. I gained a shit ton from it. Definitely been awesome. I gained an absolute shit ton. Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Quantitatively, how much is a shit ton? What is a buttload?
Well, if the tools that I was getting in my life and the enjoyment I was getting from my life before was a raindrop, I'm somewhere around the size of an Olympic swimming pool, so that's a shit ton. Okay.
Oh, God.
Logan, this is one of those energies that I get to choose into showing my love by giving you a table to the teeth. That was atrocious.
No, that's a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
it's been awesome. Yeah, thank you. thank you. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Slut. Gay boy. Nothing to the case. If you like broccoli, go for broccoli. I never cared.
What?
Huh?
What?
Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Okay.
Pretty irrelevant YouTubers, really.
Bess, what's on your mind?
Nothing.
You bored?
Mm-mm.
All right.
Just listening.
You ready to make the blood oath?
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Not.
You ready to chug that Kool-Aid, Jets?
The Kool-Aid is so
Not this
Kool-Aid-y.
guy.
It's bussin'. That being said, I've been drinking Kool-Aid like a child. I was like going to bed the other night, looked up on the shelf, was all, fucking Kool-Aid? Hell yeah.
It's pretty good.
It's really good. It's bussin'. I love it.
Last time I had it was with alcohol,
Oof.
and then I puked.
Yep, that's gone out of your life.
Fuck yeah. We should do
Still
that
got
again.
Hammered so fast doing it that way.
That
So
was actually
fast.
so awesome. Couldn't even taste it.
Speaking of, do you know what whiskey to buy, Hoodie?
Not a clue. I hate
Literally got
whiskey.
chills.
I know, but I asked him what he wants. Well, I asked him if he'd take a bottle of whiskey.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Does how?
You can find some good ones. You can get
Yeah.
one from Scotland even.
I'm just going to go to the liquor store.
Oh, yeah, you can do that too. But there was the specific place we went on a tour at.
Uh-huh.
It's called Glengoyne. Yeah, it's the Glengoyne factory, and they serve some high quality shit, but it's expensive.
There's also High West up in Park City. So it's really good whiskey called American Prairie.
There you go.
Is it in liquor stores?
Yeah, actually, they sell it all over the place.
American Prairie.
American Prairie.
Prairie.
If he's looking for bourbon, or if you're looking for bourbon.
Depends how long you want to age too.
I just know he gets crazy on whiskey, so I was like,
Oh yeah,
you get whiskey.
bro. You can get him. You can get him the cheap stuff if he's just looking to get sloshed. If he
Yeah.
wants to enjoy it, get him some higher end stuff.
He's looking to get fucked.
Okay, get
just
Jim Beam,
just
dude.
the very bottom shelf.
Jim
dog.
Beam.
Oh yeah.
Tastes decent, and it gets you fucked up. Gets you there.
Literally
Of what?
Literally
Jim
gives me
Beam.
chills.
Jim Beam?
Jim Beam.
Okay.
That's what I would go. It's cheap as fuck, and it doesn't taste like shit.
The only
My
alcohol I've ever
Shit.
had a wanting for, even after, is wine. I love wine. I'm that type of girl.
Ooh, I like white
Post up
wine.
with some writing. Yeah.
Mila.
But
Upstairs.
Wine is fun.
even then, it's not been like, you want wine. It's like, wine's sometimes good.
Yeah.
Yakey.
Yeah, I
you
tell
tried
you.
Dirty Martini?
No, but
Try a
I
Dirty
w-
Martini.
I would acquaint myself.
They're
I'll try
fucking
everything
good.
once, and most things once.
I'll do most things once.
You got to tell your wine story
Shit, which one? Well,
of waking up.
oh yeah, that one too. I was gonna say me and the wife got a little sloshed on wine. We had an at-home date, and we were dipping cinnamon bears in chocolate, drinking wine, dog. It was great.
Nice.
I definitely got more sloshed than she, but it was fun. But no, on my wedding night, we had some wine back at the hotel room, and we were drinking a little bit. I didn't get sloshed. I might have got a little buzz, but then we eventually went to bed, and woke up in the middle of the night, parched as fuck. I look over, and there's two bottles or two glasses of clear liquid on my nightstand, and I just grabbed the first one and drank.
Chugged
It was
it.
wine.
Oh.
I was all no. It was so brutal.
Dude, wine gives me nightmares. If
Really?
I drink a whole bottle, I'll get like bad nightmares. It's
Wine
weird.
drunk is such an interesting drunk.
It's
The world's
different.
bubbly and things. I found it pretty fun, but
Yeah.
but the
Hangovers
next
are
day,
trash.
yeah, after wine, wake up, I'm like, I'm the Sahara Desert.
Because there's so much sugar in it. All that sugar equates to a really bad hangover. That's why vodka doesn't give you, like, the less sugar it has in it, better you'll feel the next day.
Vodka's top tier.
Yeah. If I were to
Straight
choose
alcohol.
into that energy,
Golly,
which even
sweet
gives me
Christmas,
the
yeah.
cringes, my toes, dude. Thinking about hard alcohol, I'm like, why would I fucking ever?
And then there's
Grapefruit
me, I
beer.
just bought 3 bottles.
Of vodka?
No, I bought one well, because I told you I went and bottled whiskey at the Alpine Distillery.
Yeah.
I bought some gin, vodka, and whiskey.
Gin.
Hell yeah.
It was
No.
like this Lily gin that was all like red. It looked really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
It's called Lily Lake or something. I was like, I gotta try that.
I haven't been able to do gin since,
I
dude.
know. I remember that was so fun.
That was
Years
lit.
ago. That was when I was 18, I think,
Were you?
or 19 maybe. I was young.
That was Nathan's or
Yeah,
somebody's bachelor
Nathan's
party.
bachelor party. Yeah,
Holy shit.
that's the most drunk I've ever been.
That was so lit.
Ever.
Just remember walking through the fields with you.
5 in the morning. Walking down the roads camping. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's not that those things don't serve. I mean, they definitely have their place. There's some cool experiences attached. But I still get the mixed shivers, and I'm like,
Dude, White Claws and tequila?
Oh.
Dead. Straight to the fucking dirt.
That's where you hit up the puking tree.
Oh, you got in contact with a higher energy then, that's for sure.
Amazing it, Jesus.
It's a lower energy.
Oh no, it was hilarious. He was tied himself up to a tree, holding his arms on it. Please, God. It was
So many prayers and
Low
covenants.
enough that he was totally going up. He was like, listen, it's been a long time, but here are my Hail Marys. Bring it back. I'm so sorry. I'll never watch porn again.
Probably. Speaking of,
Yeah.
I've only watched it once in the last almost 3 months.
Yeah, it's been like twice for me.
Yeah.
It's been a totally different experience.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
It's way good.
It's not been like a need or even want, like, and even when I get to the space, I was like looking at it, I'm like, this really isn't doing much for me. It's because all of it used to be in my head. You know what I mean? It's like thinking about it. It's not even that experience. I really don't give a shit. I really don't give that much of a shit about it, if I'm being honest to myself. Like, cool. Sexual energy has a space, but it's in its own place. You know what I mean? It's not something I'm grasping on like I used to grasp on things. So it just flows easier. It's not even something I need to be constantly on my head about.
Mm-hmm.
So that fell out of my life in a big way too, which has been super dope.
Immaculate.
Mm-hmm.
Guys are doing better than I am. Cheers.
Same. Cheers.
It's not even a better thing, just what works for me, you know.
I'm not even working to quit. It just
Mm-mm.
just
Not
stopped.
appealing.
Even
Yeah.
my sex drive in total.
Oh fuck,
just
my
fucking
sex drive
dead.
is there. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, mine's shown itself. It's shown up, but it's only in the spaces that it would show up, like getting intimate with someone.
Yeah.
Boom, then it's there. But like through the whole experience of learning all sorts of shit and letting go of a lot of stuff for myself, it's been like still waters to the point where I was like, yo, is my sex drive dead? It's like, hey buddy, wake up.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, do I actually have fucking ED? But no, I don't.
No. When it wants to show up, it does, but it's so
it rears
rare
its
now.
head, literally.
Yeah.
Anyways.
We should end it while we're ahead.
Yeah, any advice for
For-
the listeners?
For the listeners.
Parting words for the listeners.
Oh,
30 words or less.
life can
Bro.
be easy. Stop thinking about it. Do it. And when there's a task, the hardest part of it is thinking about it. Just fucking do it. Hit up a Nike. It's easy. Just do it.
Cheers. Thanks.
Yep.
Cheers.
Dope.
This is sponsored by Shia LaBeouf.
All
All right.
Thank you guys, and we'll see y'all next week.
Yep.
Peace out. Thanks for
Adios.
having me, guys.
Peace out.
Toodles.